And now I'd like to turn to our guest speaker, Dr. Jabbar Bennett. Our guest speaker, Dr. Jabbar Bennett, is the inaugural, though he has now stepped down over the summer, the inaugural Associate Provost for Diversity and Inclusion at Northwestern University. Notably, at Northwestern University, he managed the implementation of the 2016 Black Experience Task Force report and helped facilitate efforts to encourage and increase success of first-generation low-income and marginalized students through the Undergraduate Students Life Cycle Planning Committee at Northwestern. He's a strong supporter of marginalized communities and sponsored the drafting of recommendations at the Genderqueer, Non-Binary, and Transgender Support Task Force. In addition, he was the inaugural Chief Diversity Officer at Northwestern, and he has also served as Associate Professor of Medicine in the Feinberg School of Medicine. He was responsible there for creating a diverse and inclusive and welcoming environment for all community members at Northwestern. Prior to that experience, he served as Associate Dean of the Graduate School and Associate Dean for Diversity in the Division of Biology and Medicine. And he served as a clinical professor of medicine at the Warren Alpert Medical School of Brown University. Dr. Bennett earned his BS in biology and a minor in Spanish from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, and he earned his Ph.D. in biomedical sciences from Meharry Medical College. He was a UNCF Merck Postdoctoral Research Fellow in the Department of Pathology at Harvard Medical School before proceeding on to his academic career in the professoriate. So with that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Bennett and hearing his words to share with us today.
Mark, thank you so much for the introduction. Also, Vice Chancellor Brown for being here with us today. I am going to talk to you all today about advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and specifically focus on the role of mentoring. There'll be some other things woven in, but I do want to emphasize the importance of mentoring, and you'll hear that throughout. But before I get started, I, of course, have to say, as we've already heard, congratulations to all Excellence in Postdoctoral Scholar Mentoring and Outstanding Postdoctoral Scholar Award finalists. It's truly wonderful to be recognized for the work that you do, the service that you give, and especially at the level of a chancellor. When I was invited to give this talk, I was thinking, well, let me learn a little bit more about these awards so that my remarks can hopefully be relevant to those of you who are here today and to the recipients and the finalists. So I wanted to understand a bit about the awards and the attributes of the recipients. So looking at the Excellence in Postdoctoral Scholar Mentoring Award, I learned that these individuals are expected to be effective advisors, advocates, role models, and colleagues, provide intellectual leadership and model excellence, to demonstrate leadership in supporting and fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion, creating a supportive environment for research and scholarship, ensuring that the postdoctoral scholar is trained in the skills and knowledge necessary, and provide opportunities to network with colleagues. And for outstanding postdoctoral scholar recipients and finalists, you're expected to conduct exceptional research, exhibit leadership, mentorship, and service, excel in research by displaying intellectual merit, ethical conduct, professional behavior, and the ability to demonstrate research, innovation, and productivity. You all also assume leadership roles, have a strong record of service, and support and foster diversity, equity, and inclusion. So in looking across all these criteria for both awards, I saw a few common themes. Leadership popped out to me, as well as diversity, equity, inclusion, and finally, excellence. So what I'm gonna do over the next several minutes is talk about a few things. I wanna explore the role of mentoring in your evolution and leadership development. And I'll talk a little bit about my own leadership journey and what I believe motivates people to be good leaders. I'll discuss the benefits of and challenges to advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, and finally share some best practices which promote inclusive excellence and support your success. We'll talk a bit about choosing your mentor carefully, recognizing and leveraging your own power as a leader, and finally, and what I think is extremely important, taking care of yourself. So I don't want to make any assumptions about what we know or believe regarding sort of the main topics that I'll be speaking of, especially as not everyone who's in the audience may be a finalist. So I'll be talking about diversity, which you can think about broadly as difference. Diversity obviously also is often considered to be a quantitative measure. I'll be talking about equity or fairness, justice or freedom from bias or favoritism. Equity, again, is really important in everything we do. I'll be talking about inclusion, which is an act or practice of including and accommodating people, especially those who've been historically excluded based on factors that you can see in front of you. And then inclusive excellence, which is an active and intentional and ongoing engagement with diversity in various ways, and in ways that we hope will increase personal and social awareness, as well as content knowledge, cognitive sophistication, and empathetic understanding of one another. So let's get into the role of mentoring in your evolution in leadership development. I'm always intrigued by words and sort of by beginnings and by the genesis of things. So I thought I'd take you back to Greek mythology, which is where we actually get the term mentor from. Some of you may be familiar with Homer's Odyssey and know that Odysseus, who was king at that time, was called off to fight the Trojan War. And the day that he was called off to fight the Trojan War, from what the story says, his son Telemachus had been born. Of course, concerned about his son not having the guidance that he himself, Odysseus, would have given, he depended and called upon his old friend Mentor to sort of take care of his son and look after him in his absence. So Telemachus and Mentor developed a strong relationship built on the foundations of guidance and support. And the word mentor, as we know it, has become synonymous with teacher, counselor, coach, facilitator, motivator, and friend. And mentors actually can be many other things as well, which I'll talk about too. This is a word cloud which just represents sort of the response that people gave when asked sort of, what do you think about when you hear the word mentor? You'll see things like engaging, friend, encouraging, inspiring, resource, guide, helpful, rewarding, but you'll also see things like spontaneous. And when mentors are spontaneous, that doesn't always benefit the mentee the most. Sometimes mentors can be random. It could be something that they have on their mind, that they think is a wonderful idea that should be pursued and should be prioritized, but I'm not sure if it always fits into your plans for the day. Mentors also might be perfect or may be perceived to be perfect. And with that, there can be a lot of undue influence or stress placed upon mentees. So it's something to consider if you are a mentor, as well as if you are a mentee who may be mentoring others. At times, mentors can give a gentle helping hand, and at times, mentors can help you put things together like the pieces of a puzzle. And even sometimes, mentors can give you a boost, or as the picture shows, a boot, because some of us need that at times as well, especially those of us who are prone to procrastinate. I want to talk about two different concepts related to mentoring. One, mentoring from the outside in, and right after this, I want to talk about mentoring from the inside out. And with this example of mentoring from the outside in, I want to share a bit about the very early beginnings of my own personal leadership journey. So what I'm sharing here is the cover of a book that I still have that my aunt gave me when I was in kindergarten. And in the book, it essentially chronicles my experiences in grade school, kindergarten through 12th grade. I have memories and memorabilia throughout the book, photos and so forth. And just for the sake of this story and to emphasize what sort of mentoring from the outside in looks like, I'm going to share with you sort of a sneak peek into my very earliest sort of beginning, again, thinking about leadership and my development and sort of, again, cultivating the interests and aptitude that I displayed at the time. So this is me in kindergarten. And I know I was a cute kid, and I want to believe I don't look too much different today. But you'll see here that when I was in kindergarten, I went to Cash, was the name of my school. My teacher's name was Mrs. Ruth. The first day of school was Monday, because I didn't know that I should have written the year, the date, and the month at the time. Everything's relative, right? I was 6 years old, 3 feet tall, and weighed 60 pounds. I have given versions of this talk to various audiences over the years, and I worked at Harvard Medical School for a while, trained there, and worked at Brigham and Women's Hospital as well. And I recall giving this presentation and showing this slide to some high school students who were in a summer research program. And as I went through the introduction, going through the page, just as I did with you, a very quick and witty student raised their hand to say, "You were 3 feet tall and weighed 60 pounds. He said, you were obese." And that may be the case, but again, all things relative. So you can see enclosures are listed here at the bottom. And what you may not be able to make out the top is a little envelope. It's a ridge here at the top where I could insert all my report cards and other things. So I still do have those. This is the back of this same page when I was in kindergarten. My friends were named Bart, Scott, Terry, Anthony, that I spelled with an E, Johnny, Chris W, Chris N, and somebody else. Activities I listed: rabbits, hearts, apples, Santa Clauses, plates, and faces. And for achievements, sack race and broad jump. And for some of you, you remember having these field days where students would compete against each other within grades. And for me, that was a lot of fun. And lastly, what I wrote on this page in this section for awards was sheets of paper, because at that time, that's what awards were to me. Again, being very sort of direct about what I was thinking. At the bottom of this page, there was a whole section about when I grow up, I want to be. And this is what I want to focus on before I move on. When I grow up, what I want to be. These were things that were listed that were prescribed for people based on how you might identify gender-wise. So if you identified as a woman, it was suggested that the things you could aspire to be, beyond kindergarten and when you become an adult, include being a mother, a nurse, a school teacher, an airline hostess, a model, or a secretary. And if you identified as a boy, you could be a fireman, a policeman, which it appears I contemplated for some point in time, a cowboy, an astronaut, a soldier, or a baseball player. But the other part of this that I'll show you now is that for some reason, I wrote in inventor. An inventor or a scientist or one who discovers. My parents both went to college, but neither of them were scientists. But what they did see was my interest in science and exploration. And they knew enough to sort of surround me with things that helped to spur that interest in science and further cultivate that talent. And I was fortunate in this case that I did grow up to become a scientist. And it sort of worked out for me. But that's not always the case. Often when you're being mentored from the outside in, you'll find yourself being exposed to many random possibilities opposed to more targeted opportunities. As I said, it worked out for me in the long run, but it surely could have gone another way. With postdocs now and graduate students who are thinking about careers in academia or even outside of academia, and how they can best utilize their talents and their degrees, you have many people around you to tap into who can provide this information. So I encourage you to seek them out. Mentoring from the inside out looks very different. And I think you need to consider that how you can sort of spend time thinking about what you want to do, who you want to be, and what you want to contribute more intentionally as postdocs moving forward. I think it's really important to identify your purpose. What is that thing you want to do? Maybe it's through the work that you do in the lab, in the classroom, and so forth, that makes you happy, that you probably do pretty well, and you know will have an impact on people. You must understand purpose and vision. Life with purpose is precise and directed. Life without purpose can be depressing. And purpose provides vision, or the ability to see the end from the beginning, and vision sets goals, which motivates a plan of action. It's really important that early on you determine what your goals are, because your goals will dictate your companions, inform your decisions, predict your choices, create priorities, and provide a measure for progress. And when you're doing more mentoring from the inside out, you'll find yourself sort of facing fewer or less heavily weighted random possibilities, but truly benefiting from more targeted opportunities. So purpose plus vision plus goals equals success. And all of these things are individually defined. And it's something that I encourage postdocs to do, especially as it relates to the work that they are doing, that they aspire to do, and the impact they may want to have on science, also within society. There are many benefits and challenges to advancing diversity, equity, inclusion, but all of us can surely play a role. Regarding the benefits and why does diversity matter? Because you need diversity if you want to truly be excellent and achieve excellence in research and in other areas. Diversity breeds creativity as well as spurs additional innovation. It broadens the scope of inquiry if you're doing research related to health, sex or gender related issues. It also considers changing demographics by pulling people into research and the pathway toward research that match with, again, evolving demographics in the country or the nation or the world, but also helps to sort of increase the number of people doing the work who identify with those populations. And when you put all this together, you truly can reach not only a certain level of excellence, but true global research preeminence. The challenges to advancing diversity, equity, inclusion are many and multi-level. They happen at the local level, they happen with senior administrators, and they also happen at the individual level. Locally, it's really hard to concisely articulate and clearly communicate sort of a single idea generally around diversity, equity, inclusion, much less a strategy and action plan. And it's also difficult, but not impossible, to effectively implement, monitor, and assess programs based on action plans and provide outcomes to various constituents across the entire population. With senior administration, people are often frustrated with the lack of acknowledgement around issues of diversity, equity, inclusion. People and institutions are often resistant to change. Policy implementation can be quite challenging to help, again, address barriers that may prevent members of underrepresented groups from moving forward. And there's always a consideration of organizational climate and change management. What will happen if I make this decision? What will happen if I implement this policy? Which may move diversity, equity, inclusion forward, but may not be very popular amongst everyone within the organization or the institution. And individually, there are things we don't know. And we don't always get people to go along with us. We often fear what will happen if we make certain decisions, and then all of us truly have inherent biases. It's really important as we move forward to acknowledge the role of bias in everything that we do, which is a tendency to believe that some people, ideas, etc., are better than others, that usually results in treating some people unfairly. And acknowledging our own biases is the first step toward equity. Here's an example of an entire wall of overwhelming disproof, and right in front of it is a single supporting factor. But you can also see the person in the cartoon saying, "I've got all the evidence I need." Please beware of confirmation bias. You should also be concerned as current postdocs and as faculty, and again, current postdocs who may want to become faculty or who are leaders in many ways, the impact of not advancing diversity, equity, inclusion on members of underrepresented groups. I want to show you some recent headlines that sort of underscore what I'm talking about. Being a Black Ph.D. student following George Floyd's murder, academia forces Black scholars to choose between fully processing our emotions during moments of racial injustice and producing enough research to succeed professionally. The life of a Black academic, tired and terrorized. What has not been acknowledged in the world of terror, enveloping many Black academics, that has changed feeling tired to absolute exhaustion. I was fed up and how the hashtag Black in the Ivory movement got started, and what it's found is want to see next. And I'll say that this movement got started by a graduate student and a faculty member at one institution, because the challenges that many people face who are members of underrepresented groups, and speaking particularly of Black people in this instance, are often common, despite the position that you hold. So I wanted to share that. A little bit more. Even scientists have realized the bias, for example, in peer review. Criterion scores completely account for racial disparities in overall impact scores. And many others, senior lawmakers, are calling on the national academies to scrutinize racism in science. The Council of Graduate Schools has taken it upon itself to ensure that underrepresented graduate students who are currently enrolled in graduate school have the support they need to complete during COVID, as COVID has also exacerbated many challenges that we face. And this next one applies to all of us, including those on the call. The COVID pandemic has darkened postdocs' work and career hopes. And it's really darkened a lot of our hopes as well, as I understand, and many of you do too, that members of underrepresented and or vulnerable populations don't need an added layer of challenge or barriers before them as they're thinking about progressing and moving forward. And as a former postdoc, I can say that I do believe postdocs are in vulnerable positions in many ways, and we must remain vigilant around how to better support them in their development. The other things I want to mention, and I want to mention this for the faculty who are here, but also postdocs who, again, may be currently mentees, but also mentors, is to acknowledge the multiple national crises and their impact, again, on members of underrepresented groups. Racial injustice and violence, coronavirus, and two topics I didn't go over in the headlines, the economic recession and a divisive US presidential election. In addition, we must remain vigilant regarding ongoing challenges for members of the scientific community. Violence against women and sexual misconduct, violence against sexual and gender minorities, broad issues of access and support for people with disabilities, broad issues of access and support and delivery, rather, of mental health services, discrimination against non-Christian faith groups, and support for international students and scholars, all keenly important. So what are some best practices which will promote inclusive excellence and support your success? I like this image that appeared on a science magazine quite some time ago, and it essentially depicts, many of you may be familiar with the game of life. In the game of life, you go through various stages of development, professional experience, and so forth. And the idea in this game, in any game, is that you roll the die based on the number total that you get, you move that number of spaces, and when you land on a space, you essentially deal with the consequence that's there. For example, you may see here just to the left of the die, fail a test, and you go back 2 spaces. I show this to sort of say that as faculty are thinking about their own careers, maybe it's promotion and or tenure, and as postdocs are thinking about their careers in faculty positions, academia, nonprofits, corporate, and so forth, you're gonna run into challenges along the way. And the best advice that I can give is to expect those challenges and be ready to choose how you will respond. So just like the idea in any game is to roll the die, see where you land, and if you don't land where you want, you don't give up and quit, you roll the die and you go again. Same thing happens in life. Same thing happens in careers. It's also important to employ personal strategies for success. Seek personal and professional career development, participate in networking events, develop social support, understand the power of negotiation, and engage in effective mentor-mentee relationships. Here's some data-driven advice for people who are in graduate school and beyond, so I thought I'd share this as well. It's really important to start planning your future career early. You need to pay attention to your mental health. You should map out your goals, do your very best to find work-life balance, and choose your mentor carefully. I want to say that I'm really pleased actually with the amount of writing and data that exists today regarding mentoring and mentor training. And there's some wonderful work out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison that takes this a step further. Please be aware that there are at least 4 phases of mentoring as identified by these researchers that identify selection, alignment, cultivation, and closure. And selection means mentor selecting a mentee as well as mentor selecting a mentor. There may be some characteristics or attributes about the mentor that you admire that you would like to emulate. And that's always a good reason to think about selecting someone or approaching someone to be your mentor, because it's fine to have a whole circle or village of mentors, not just the one assigned to you in your lab. Alignment is really important, and this is where the mentor and mentee align their own expectations for this mentoring relationship, for this experience. It's important that you are clear about what you want out of the relationship, and the mentor should be as well. Cultivation is the process by which you truly develop and become that person that you say you want to be and you've agreed to be with the help of the mentor. And then closure is also important too. Thinking about what happens as the relationship begins to transition, maybe from mentor-mentee to colleague, as some of you may again collaborate with your PIs if you are a postdoc when you move forward. I thought this was nice, so I'll spend a minute talking about it. Consider a mentor's plea. And then the mentor says, "Dear mentee, ask me to explain my expectations. Respect the demands on my time. Don't try to be my friend. Respond to emails promptly and politely. Have an agenda when you meet with me. Actually take my advice. Google it first. Go to the right source for the right question. Go to events I mentioned. Ask for clarification. Please send materials 48 hours in advance. Keep track of your deadlines. Give me what I need to help you. Confirm what you need to do next. Take notes. Don't limit yourself to a single mentor. And please, please, please keep me posted." I want everyone on the call or here with us to recognize and leverage their own position and power as a leader. You may not have the title as an administrative sort of title, but you are a leader. And I want to encourage you that you can lead from anywhere you are in the organization. If you are supervising a graduate student or an undergraduate student or a summer research intern, you have a responsibility to, again, engage in a thoughtful way as a leader. Be caring. Take an interest in the people who you work with. Commit to learning, get to know people, appreciating, respect people, contribute, add value to people, verbalize, affirm people, lead by influencing people, and succeed winning with people. One success is everyone's success, and I encourage you all to focus on how you might, again, put this into practice as you do lead and as you do mentor. I believe there are at least 10 top attributes of equitable leaders, which I've listed here for you. Be informed, be engaged, be fair, be objective, be vigilant, be optimistic, be welcoming, be thoughtful, be accommodating, and be vocal. Leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say. If serving is below you, then leadership is surely beyond you. The scholar who cherishes the love of comfort is not fit to be a deemed scholar. Change means movement, movement means friction, and only in the frictionless vacuum of a non-existent abstract world can movement or change occur without that abrasive friction of conflict. And people who are aware of and ashamed of their prejudice are well on the road to eliminating them. I wish we all could say that yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world, but today I am wise, so I am changing myself. I'll list a couple things quickly I believe that institutions can do to help drive inclusive excellence, and then a few things that individuals can do. I contributed to a paper a while back that talked about the future of graduate and postdoctoral training in the biosciences, and I think this is relevant today because these are ways that you can also increase the diversity of scientists in senior and leadership roles. Begin leader training early for graduate students and postdocs, provide incentives and rewards, just like today, for programs that impact institutional culture, which enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion. Encourage change and review practice for recruitment, hiring, promotion, funding, publications, and awards. Require inclusivity training for all senior administrators, faculty, staff, postdocs, and graduate students, and establish major funding mechanisms to prepare underrepresented postdocs for a transition into successful careers. These are 7 things that departments and PIs can do, and I'll just mention them quickly as well. Provide supplemental mentorship, peer support, require mentor training. Please conduct exit surveys. Provide clear guidelines and timelines as it relates to advancement. the standards and transparency regarding salary and benefits, make those clear, and also provide, again, career and professional development resources. And then specifically during COVID, one thing that senior administrators could do to help their faculty and trainees, which would be everyone on the call, is clarify expectations, increase efficiency, use technology platforms to your advantage, lead by modeling work-life balance. And again, I go back to mental health, providing opportunities there. Many institutions are providing flexibility as it relates to the 10-year clock. These are the types of things that matter as the entire world is impacted by COVID. And best practice for individuals, I encourage you to embrace cultural sensitivity. Strive to provide high quality, effective interactions with people from diverse sociocultural backgrounds, and understand why cultural sensitivity is important, because unexplored or misunderstood sociocultural differences between people can lead to dissatisfaction, poor performance, and outcomes. And demonstrating cultural sensitivity among all individuals is considered an important step toward the elimination of inequities in recruitment, retention, and advancement. And please commit to cultural humility. It requires all of us to continually engage in self-reflection and self-critique as lifelong learners and reflective practitioners. And cultural humility incorporates a lifelong commitment to redressing the inherent power imbalances in relationships and to developing mutually beneficial and non-paternalistic partnerships with others. And it's duly important to understand the significance of the intersection of various identities when we are having these interactions. It's really important that we support advocacy as individuals, as leaders and institutions, and also commit to action. Some of you may know about the nationwide STEM shutdown that took place in June. And this is where people were really trying to draw attention to what was happening in the country and the fact that what happens in the country impacts all of our lives on and off the research bench. So please support advocacy and commit to action. I want to spend the last 2 minutes or so talking about what members of underrepresented groups especially should do as you move forward with this work. Take care of yourself. You heard me mention mental health a few times, and I can't mention it enough, but please take care of yourself. For many members of underrepresented groups who have made it to faculty positions they're in or postdocs, this image can often, for some of us, really explain what our experience has been. They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. All of us don't receive the same amount of encouragement from mentors, from faculty, from family and friends that we need. And it's important for a mentor, when you agree to take someone on as your mentee, that you understand who they are, you understand their experience, you understand their dreams, but you should also ask them and get a better understanding about all the obstacles that they've faced to date so that you can help contribute to their success. I encourage people, again, to be mentally strong. I won't go through all 18 of these, but you gotta sort of, again, stay in control. You gotta embrace change. You gotta stay happy. You have to be kind. There are many things here that make a lot of sense, I'm sure, but there are things we often forget to do when we're in the midst of dealing with daily challenges. And lead yourself exceptionally well. This book I recommend for everyone who's here today, The 360-Degree Leader by John Maxwell. You can all get something out of it. But in leading yourself well, you learn how to manage your emotions as well as your time, your priorities, your energy, your thinking, your words, and your personal life. And I want you all to be empowered. Understand your potential, acknowledge your ability, confidently exercise your competence, pursue your ambition, and determine your contribution. I use a lot of images and cartoons because I think it's some of the simplest things that take us back to our earliest understanding and memories of basic concepts. And in Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss, who again, I believe was a very prolific philosopher, he said, you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know, and you are the guy or gal who will decide where to go. All of us have a responsibility to pay it forward. No one got where they are without the help of someone else, whether it was a formal mentor or informal mentor, an advisor, or maybe a peer mentor or friend. But all of us should strive to embody what this cartoon says. It says, my mentor's character inspired me, and hopefully I will inspire my mentees. And lastly, simple advice, old advice, follow the golden rule. Treat people the way you would like other people to treat you. And I add a little personal wish as well, choose to be kind. And I think kindness goes a long way. So again, congratulations to all the Excellence in Postdoctoral Scholar Mentoring and Outstanding Postdoc Scholar Award finalists. I couldn't be happier to be here and happier to know that UCSD even does something like this and is committed to it on an annual basis to acknowledge your contributions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bennett. Those were very important and timely words. And I thoroughly appreciate your integration of a lot of the current issues that are facing us as essentially extensions of our normal professional lives, and how are we to be engaged in our communities, and as researchers, and in our roles as mentors and as mentees. Thank you very much for those words.